Hello and welcome back to the Aussie Football Passport. I am joined for the final edition of our World Cup specials with Scott and Adam from Brisbane Football Review. How are you, Scott?
I'm good, but it is a bit of bittersweet feeling today, isn't it, now that the World Cup has come to an end?
Yeah, it really is. I'm going to have to go and get a life now, apparently. So, talk
Mhm.
to people outside and things like that, which is going to feel a bit strange, isn't it, Adam? I'm sure you're probably feeling the same.
Yeah, 104 matches done and completed. The global festival of football is over, and yeah, look, I'm actually a bit sad that it's over, but in a way, yeah, let's move on to the next.
Yeah, yeah, and this time we've got 4 years to wait instead of the 3.5, of
Mm.
course, like we did after Qatar. So, that should be interesting, and of course, the potential of 64 nations taking part in the next World Cup, which will be held all over the world, FIFA's global tour. But anyway, we'll save that rant for later. Before we rip into it, Adam, I'll get you to plug your
Yep.
wonderful podcast, The Brisbane Football Review.
Yep, you can find us on Facebook, The Review, or Brisbane Football Review, on Twix at BNE Football, Instagram and Threads at Brisbane Football Review, or lowercase. You can drop us an email, Brisbane Football Review at gmail.com. And you can find this show and all of our other shows on podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Brilliant. Thank you, Adam. And of course, as you are well versed now, Brisbane Football Review is your place to go to find out about all things happening in Queensland football, from the Brisbane Roar all the way down to the state leagues here in Queensland. Now, before we get into the World Cup action that has taken place over the last week, we want to just give you some news on our Socceroos, and the first transfer domino has fallen. We expect that there'll be a few more, and in fact, there is a couple to discuss. But let's kick it off with Patrick Beach to Troyes on a 5-year deal, meaning we will have another player in the top 5 leagues in Europe, which is fantastic stuff, and on the back of a wonderful World Cup, don't you think, Adam, for Patrick?
Very well deserved, and we all called it that Melbourne City were probably going to be on the hunt for a goalkeeper, given the way Patrick Beach performed during the World Cup for the Socceroos. And look, this is an interesting move. I think we actually all had him probably pegged going to probably New York City, if he was going to stay within the City Football Group. But move to Troyes is probably not a bad thing. And again, he's going to get plenty of practice playing against some of the best in the world. And that'll only increase his skills and hopefully a long stay in there even further for him. So look, congratulations to him. Just rewards for for a breakout tournament at the World Cup, and we wish him well as we do with all our Aussies.
Indeed, and off the back of some strong performances domestically for Melbourne City here in the A League as well, which is really great to see. And of course, we did see Matt Ryan go to Lens about a year ago from memory, because he went to Levante after that, and really revive his career after being in a bit of wilderness before that. So it's a great place for young, talented players to develop. We know how many fantastic footballers come from Liga. It's just a production line, and you saw it with the French, making a semi-final yet again in this World Cup, and we'll get to that later. But I know, Scott, you also wanted to talk about Luka Jovanovic's move to the MLS, which is, again, a sound reward for an A-League player, the one of the joint Golden Boot winners from this season. A good move, do you think?
Yeah, it isn't a bad move for him. Again, he was the A-League Golden Boot winner last year. He did really well in that competition. He's done well for the last couple of years, and he was one who was primed for a move to either Europe or the MLS. He's followed the well-trodden path now of young Australian players going to the MLS. As we saw with Jake Goodwood-Reich, he can use that as a springboard to get to European competition. I'm sure Lucas Harrington won't be too far behind on that as well. It's not a bad move if he can go over there and get some quality experience at that level over there. That's a really good thing. With Patrick Beach, it's very interesting. They have two experienced goalkeepers over the age of 30, including one they just signed last year. So I imagine there will be a bit of competition there for him in the initial stages, but it's just great to have players moving from the A League straight to a top 5 league, isn't it? In terms of the way he has done that. We've seen a lot of players go to clubs overseas. He's one of the first who've really gone to clubs in the top 5 leagues. I know Paul Ocon did it last week as well, and it's nice to see that group of players in the top 5 leagues really building up now, isn't it, Alex? There's a lot of young players who are coming through at academy level who you can't really talk about and build up at this point in time because you never know what they're going to achieve. But to have first team players at top 5 leagues around Europe, that's how we are going to get better as a football nation. We need more of that to happen. And there's some good players who've got overseas who are primed to get there, like a Geordie Boston, Nestria and Kunda. But it's so nice to see players like Patrick Beach make that move. And one young player who did move, actually, I think Adam might be keeping an eye on, is Max Anastasio, who's just moved to AC
Mm,
Milan's B team as well. So that's a really nice thing. Good to see more players moving that level, but we need more of it.
definitely, yeah, and it's a bit of a throwback, for I'm hesitant to make the comparison to that generation from, the early 2000s, but there's some similarities there in terms of players starting to make those moves. They've just got to make them as successful, we hope, as that generation. And as you said, rightfully, Scott, that will make the Socceroos such a better team. So it's fantastic. We've got Patrick Beach there in Liga. We've got Paul Okonengsler. Hopefully this week the paperwork will be sorted for his move to Cologne in the Bundesliga. I think we'll have Dylan Leonard at Schalke in the Bundesliga as well.
Yes.
We'll have Christian Volpato in the Serie A at Sassuolo. Well, whether it's at Sassuolo or another club, that's to be decided. And of course, Ali Chikati as well with Parma or potentially another club.
Got Joe
So
Gauci at Villa as well. We shouldn't forget about him
yes,
either as well. And Casey Boss, I think, is on loan this year, but he's also contracted at Mainz. So there's another player at a top 5 league. So we are building that list, and we should also Antonio Arena. He is an Aussie.
yes, yes, yeah, yes, he is, and he's on the books at Roma. So hopefully he can sneak into that side. Of course, Casey Boss, as you mentioned, is out on loan. Funnily enough, at Excelsior Rotterdam. So there's a potential to play his brother in the Rotterdam derby in the Eredivisie this season. So that should be quite spicy, that one. So mark that one in your calendars. It should be
Will the
a good
football
one.
public of Rotterdam forgive his parents wearing a half jersey?
That would be interesting. That would be very interesting. I'm not too sure of, whether that is, a bit of a taboo or not. So, I think the general rule is no half jerseys, and, yeah, particularly if it's 2 Rotterdam teams, right? Yeah, they might be in some serious trouble there.
From what I little know about Rotterdam, I was there in November last year. Excelsior, I didn't really get much of a sense that anyone really sort of noticed. The big rivalry, of course, is Feyenoord and Sparta Rotterdam. So the fact that we're going to have a Boss Brothers derby, there might be one to keep an eye on. I think it's been a while, or if ever, Excelsior has actually made it to the Eredivisie. So, but either way, yeah, pretty good to have two very, very talented Aussies rule Rotterdam.
Yes, indeed. It should be quite good. It should be quite good indeed. Now, some unfortunate news for a couple of our midfielders and teammates in the MLS for New York City. Aiden O'Neill and Kai Truan both have had ankle surgery, I believe. So they're going to be out of action. We don't have a timeline on that. So that's very unfortunate. But you could probably understand Aiden O'Neill's ankle injury running
Mm.
those long distances that he covered for Socceroos over those 4 matches. Just incredible to think that he might have actually had this injury while he was playing the World Cup. Just really, I think, shows a testament to the man, don't you think, Adam?
Yeah, look, Aidan O'Neill, he is very, very tough, and look, he would have run all day and then some for the Socceroos. And look, it's a shame, but then again, it's a bit of time off after another play that I think that it's going to get a lot of recognition. I do think that if when he returns, if he has a solid season in MLS, I think he may be one of the next ones to maybe head towards Europe. I think that it'll be very, very hard to ignore him, especially his exploits for the Socceroos in the coming years.
Hopefully he's
Yeah.
fit for September, Alex, because it's a home game for him in Brisbane. He's never played here in Brisbane as a Queensland kid, so fingers crossed he gets that chance because they don't play here very often, as we know, Alex. So hopefully he can get that chance.
Yeah, that'd be lovely to see Aiden strutting his stuff on home turf. And to round out the Socceroos, since there's some rumours of friendly matches being organised against Uruguay in October, and I'll throw this one to you.
Hang on a second.
Oh,
Can you even use the word friendly and Uruguay in the same sentence?
sorry, yes, you're probably right. Matches.
That's some other South American team you're thinking of, Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Uruguay, I
Mm.
mean, don't even have the ability to kick lumps out of people. They were that terrible at this World Cup. I think
Mm.
most Uruguayans will even agree with me
Yeah.
there. So I'll yes, thank you though for picking me up, Adam. But Scott, I'll throw to you on that one. What are your thoughts on you know another South American outfit that will South American nation, I should say, that will play in upcoming windows?
I think it'd be terrific. I imagine this would have to be at the Olympic Stadium down there in Sydney, just for the historical purposes. But that would be a fantastic game, wouldn't it? If we had two games against Brazil and then maybe one or two against Uruguay after that in that elongated September window, it'd be a really nice way for the Football Australia to capitalise on the World Cup, the growth Socceroos have made in terms of getting attention around Australia. To have two really big nations like this coming out here and playing would be fantastic. It's good competition as well for our players to see how Tony Popovich uses that building up to the Australia Cup, to the Asia Cup. Sorry, but yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. I hope it is. I hope that's true. I'd love to see Uruguay come back to Australia with their divine right and all the rest of it.
Yes, yeah, I
And,
think
and
you
flying
very good.
commercial.
Yes, yeah, yeah, making sure that they fly commercial. No sheep stations involved in those games, so that's not too bad. But yes, I think it's a good opportunity for the Socceroos to develop as well. Of course, we know that terrible record we have against South American nations, so this is a good opportunity, I think, to get Uruguay and Brazil probably
Yeah.
at the most vulnerable times that you'll ever get them, don't you think, Adam?
I do. I absolutely agree with that statement. I think that both Uruguay and Brazil will be rebuilding after what they would believe are abject failures for them at the World Cup. Look, again, we can't really talk, about in the same breath about where Australia's performs at the World Cup, but then again, our the bar of expectation for us is so much lower than those football mad nations. So they will be looking to rebuild and. Not a bad not a bad series for them as well to sort of start the rebuild against a progressive football nation like the Socceroos. So I think they're very very interesting. And look, I hope we get four sellout crowds. Yeah, I think that the Australian football public hopefully will reward the Socceroos for for what was a great last couple of weeks and to get out there and support them because this is a very very good team. It could be the start of something big as we've said for over this whole series.
You'd think Sydney and
Yeah.
Melbourne, wouldn't you, Alex, of where these two be played if it's going to be two games?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. As I said, I think Sydney is a shoe-in with the sort of nostalgia around 2005 there and the World Cup playoff, and yeah, Melbourne just because Melbourne, I guess. Really, do we need to
It's
say
close
any more
by.
there? Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
An hour flight, so not too far. Now, Scott, you've just sent through some interesting news there around Harry Sutar and some
Ooh.
rumours. I know there were rumours that there are a couple of clubs looking at him, the likes of Stoke, Wrexham, so he could even feature on Welcome to Wrexham, which would help with the Australian viewership, even though it is quite strong here. But West Ham look to be sort of in the lead there. So, I mean, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, it's come from a Scottish reporter, so that's probably where it's probably back in Scotland on holiday at the end of the World Cup. So yeah, West Ham apparently made him with their top transfer target, Wrexham, Stoke, and Sheffield. I think it'd be great for him. Again, a move away from Leicester, it has to happen, doesn't it? They
Yeah.
clearly do not value him, even if they're in the League One. I don't think they're going to play him very often. He needs to get out of there for his own sake, and a move to a club like West Ham, which will probably be one of the prime contenders to
Mm.
get back to the Premier League. If he can get in there and have a solid year to get them back to the Premier League, it could be a way for him to really emerge as a Premier League defender, which he's got the talent to do. He certainly has got that. It just didn't work out for him previously when he was there. So I moved to a club like West Ham or Wrexham would be the same situation because they're probably both going to be in that same basket of clubs. So he'll be there or thereabouts. So either of those would be a really nice move for him.
Yeah, I like it. Either of those, the
Mm.
2 W teams, I think that's the preferred clubs to go to, and let's hope
They could
that
suit him though with the long ball and all the rest of it from back in the day. He would fit into that team if they
that's
still play
yeah.
that way.
Yeah, well, I certainly think Wrexham do, and I guess, Nuno doesn't mind playing a bit of that as well,
Mm.
does he? And, yes, I know, one particular West Ham fan who is a friend of mine who will be very happy if that does happen. So, uh, anyway, I guess we probably should talk about these last 4 games of the World Cup, shouldn't we, gentlemen? So, let's start with the semi-finals, which were about 4 or 5 days ago now. It's all been a bit of a blur, and let's start with Spain versus France, and, I'll throw to you, Adam, but I thought Spain were very impressive in this game. I know we talked up France a lot, this time last week, but the way Spain just seemed to suffocate France with their press was, just incredible to watch, wasn't it, Adam?
I think the one thing for all the hype that we had for France, and look, it was justified too. Their midfield was found to be very, very fragile, and Rodri and Pedri in the middle there just absolutely sort of nullified the French midfield, which means it cut off the service to that dynamic front four of France, led by Kylian Mbappe. And look, I think it was a perfect game plan, and they showed. Look, you make say what you want. I know in the last show I did say something a bit anomaly about they're traveling to Dallas to play indoors and whatnot, which look could have been a factor, but at the end of the day, this was a masterstroke of tactical by Luis Del Fuente. And they're just absolutely, just shutting down that midfield, and then Spain were able to take control of the game, and really it was only one contest.
Yeah, I really, completely agree with your point around the midfield, Adam. I think it was, the BBC pundit Guillaume, I can't think of his surname, but he talked about the idea of the French midfield pretty much
Mm,
ever since '98, how they just sort of have those ball carriers. They don't really do anything too expansive. They just sort of play those sort of safe passes. And I think this was a game where that idea, they sort of go, oh, okay, we've probably got to change that idea now because they've got talented midfielders there that aren't just athletes or ones that can do that tidying up. They've got really creative players in those positions. Whether someone like an Eduardo Camavinga could have done something a little bit different or offered something a little bit different compared to the profile of central midfielders that they had, maybe not. That's, I guess, to be debated in French pubs around the world. But I don't know if you saw it differently, Squad, or if there was something that caught your eye in this game.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I did say before when we did our last show, I said France had a gear that no one else could reach. Unfortunately, they left that gear on the east coast of the United
mm,
States and put it completely in reverse because they looked nothing like the side we'd seen earlier in the tournament, didn't they? And you're both absolutely right. It was a game won in the midfield, a bit like the final, which we'll get to later on as well. The numerical advantage and the quality of what Spain have in that midfield. I think France have a Spain problem. We saw it. I think they got beaten in semi-finals of the Euros 2 years ago. They got beaten in the Nations League. They got beaten now in the World Cup. They have a problem with that. They've got unbelievable attacking talent, but that doesn't make a difference if you can't
mm,
get the ball to them often enough. And
mm.
Spain
Yep.
dominated the game through the midfield, and that was the big difference, the 3-on-2 overload. And the way they just moved the ball just completely through them. It was just a very much a dominant performance from Spain. And yeah, the opening goal came from a penalty, but that was a really clear cut penalty. But the goal was coming anyway, the way that Spain were playing. And they were very, very impressive in this game. They completely dismantled a very good French side.
Yeah, definitely, and that's probably the other weak spot, I guess, with the French side. I think that left back spot is a bit of a problem for Luca Ding. I mean, he's
Mm.
had a wonderful season with Villa, but I still think he's a little bit susceptible, and we
You know,
saw.
who's gone to PSG?
Yes, I believe I'm not sure if it's official yet, but I believe he is off to PSG. So, I mean, that's, the Aston Villa fire sale is well and truly on at the moment.
Yeah.
Morgan Rogers also
Yeah.
heading off for a massive fee, which is just insane. But anywho, yeah, I thought Luka Dean was a bit susceptible on that left side. Theo Hernandez is probably not much different really. Defensively, he's very susceptible, and yeah, another area of the pitch where Spain pulled them apart really, and that's why they ended up 2-0. And just a quick shout out to Pedro Porro as well. He looked like
Yeah.
he's been coached by a good coach again, like Ange did a couple of years ago. Just wanted to get that subtle dig in there.
Yeah.
Now to
But to
the
Adam's
other,
point, by the way,
yeah,
it was we should give credit to De La Fuente because he has
yes.
absolutely coached this group perfectly as well, and this was a great encapsulation of that,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, an unheralded coach as well, someone
Yeah.
that's
especially compared to another coach we're about to talk about.
yes, indeed. So yeah, that's a perfect segue to the next result. Of course, Argentina 2, England 1 in the other semi-final. And yeah, you're right, Scott. Thomas Tuchel got that one horrendously wrong, didn't he?
He did get it completely wrong. And look, I'm going to start this. I'm not a fan of England, so I'm not disappointed in the slightest of what happened to them. But if we're looking at it in isolation, for 70 minutes, they were definitively the better team. They had the running of the play. They deserved their lead, and to me, I thought they looked like they were going to go on and make a World Cup final. As much as I didn't want to see them do that, and then they decided, no, we're just going to sit back and
Yeah.
park not just one bus, but park about four of them, and it was it was just crazy watching it. You're watching them, you're thinking, push up, stop sitting back. At one point, they had their defensive line not on the edge of the 18-yard box, on the 6-yard box. It was
Mm.
just crazy. And look, this Argentina side was probably a bit limited in hindsight, but if you're going to give players like Lionel Messi and company that much space in and around the edge of the area, at some point they're going to put in a good quality ball to unlock you, and that's what ended up happening. And but it was a result manufactured by England. I can't believe they
Mm.
were that negative, and they had plenty of players they could have brought on in this game to be a threat going the other way who could have done it. Like players like Bukayo Saka never got involved in the game. You could have put him on to have a threat going forward in the just as an option to have something for Argentina to worry about. There was nothing for them to worry about. The more the game went on, they just kept bringing on more and more defenders. I know it worked in the Azteca for 20 minutes or whatever against the side that ran out of ideas. This Argentina side was never going to run out of ideas with Lionel Messi out there. And look, we'll talk about Argentina shortly, but for me, England completely bottled this. This was their moment to make a World Cup final, and they threw it away.
Yeah, and let's be honest, this is why they brought Thomas Tuchel in after Gareth Southgate.
Mhm.
There was that whole thing about Southgate doing the same thing, playing negative football, playing five at the back, not really making the most of the attacking talent that England have. And here they are again, exactly the
Yeah.
same spot. The new
Yeah.
boss, same as the old one. You know, uh, it must be so frustrating for English fans. I mean, like, it's the same stuff
We
over and
had the
over
same
again,
thing.
isn't it?
It's the same as us with Egypt. We sat back
Yeah,
as well, not to
yeah,
that extent, but we sat back
mm,
as well. So there's a lesson there for Australia as well. Look, yeah, you can think you can think you're overmatched, but you've got to have a threat going the other way, and otherwise,
mm,
that's what happens to you. So I hope if we learn anything out of this World Cup as an Australian national team, please let it be that you can't just sit back and park the bus with 9 defenders and try and hang on grimly
Mm.
because it just doesn't work. If England can't do it with all the quality they have at the back, we can't do it either. So we please never do that again.
yeah, well said, Scott. Really well said. Look, I'm going to throw you under the bus now, Adam. Try and follow
Mm.
that one up with your thoughts on the Argentina England game.
Well, look, I can't disagree with both of you on that. I think you've got summed it absolutely perfectly. This was a game that England butchered, and to Scott's point as well, that again, this is where sometimes is the coach more worried about soothing egos than actually trying to win a football game or doing what's best for the team. I absolutely agree with you that at some point, one of the changes should have been Harry Kane off, Bukayo Saka or Marcus Rashford or someone on, have that fast counter attack, especially with Jude Bellingham, which even more showed, and we'll talk about the third place playoff game as well. They showed that they had that in the locker, that they could play counter attacking football. But why in the biggest game in a decade for England did they absolutely bowl it? And it comes back to Tuchel. And again, it's as I said, yes, it worked in Mexico City, but you cannot tell me for a second that the Mexican attack, you got a player like Quinones is not the same player as a Messi or a Lautaro Martinez or Julian Alvarez or any of those players. So it just boggles the mind. And it looks like that the FA at least are going to have sort of come out and said, yeah, Tuchel's safe for the Euros. But look, if I'm a diehard English fan, geez, I would have been screaming for his head, and rightly so too, because yeah, it's their football. But look, he's not the only top line coach in this World Cup that's actually got their tactics really, really wrong. There's been some absolute howlers from managers across this World Cup where you think, wow, what were they thinking?
Yeah, that's a good point. It has been the World Cup
Mhm.
for managerial bottle jobs, hasn't it? Really, if you think about it, you've got Bielsa at Uruguay there. Um, Ancelotti, you could probably
Yep.
throw in there as well. I mean, there's a few other Nagelsmann at
Yep.
Germany as well.
Martinez in Portugal.
Yeah, oh
So
yeah, Martinez is a bottle job specialist.
so
Let's
so
be
so
honest. Yeah.
so back in Norway as well. I think
Yep.
he,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
I
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I thought he got it wrong. And look, I'll even throw Pochettino and Popovich in that as well, because I
Mm,
think at various times they also got it wrong or
mm.
just. And then obviously the biggest bold job of all being what we saw happen this morning.
Yes, and I
Just
just
before
wanted
we
to
rip into
yeah.
him, by the way,
Yeah.
can we give him credit for what he did in the semi-final? Because the way they went after bringing on Nico Gonzalez and
Yeah,
DePaul and Lautaro, that was very impressive the way they went and won the game. As bad as England were, and we've just given them the appropriate treatment they deserve. We've got to give Argentina credit because they
yep.
were very impressive in the last 20 minutes. So before we completely rip apart Scaloni in the final, we should give him credit for at least getting him there.
That's true. That's
Yep.
true too. And there's one other bottle job of a manager that I want to throw under the bus here. It's the Korean coach.
Oh yeah.
Horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. And he should be put in jail for what he did to that side, in
I
my
think the
opinion.
Koreans agree
Yeah,
with you,
they
by the way.
may.
Didn't they get
They
absolutely
may.
pelted when they got home?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah, yeah. And I think he pretty much lost his job. I can't remember if it was
I
before he left the US or he
I
touched
wouldn't
down.
joke.
Yeah.
I wouldn't joke about that if I were you. I actually did hear that apparently that the Korean president has actually ordered an inquiry, so he may go to jail,
Yeah,
literally.
he
So
should. He honestly, I'm
yeah,
not backing down from that
yeah,
statement. I want to make that statement. I feel very strongly about that,
yeah,
and that he absolutely ruined their tournament for me.
yeah.
If I was him,
And
I'd be volunteering for military service if I was him.
yeah, I probably
Or
would too. Yeah,
he might be the first South Korean to go across the border to North Korea.
yeah, wouldn't that be a turn of events, wouldn't it? Hi, Kim. How are you? Anyway, um, yes. So before we get to the final, let's have a chat about the third place game, because this was just absolute mayhem, and yet it was the best game of the tournament, in my opinion. Anyway, England 6, France 4, and as you talked about, Scott, Bukayo Saka had an absolutely brilliant game. Where was he at the semi-final? Seriously, the guy scored a hat trick. I know he's battling fitness issues, but seriously, like, even 45 minutes, surely you throw him on. Like, it's just boggles the mind yet again. But Scott, what did you think of this one?
Well, I'm not a big fan of the third place playoff as a concept, although I was reminded of the way that both Belgium and Croatia celebrated it when they finished third in the last two tournaments. So maybe it does have some meaning, but this was a game where you could very much tell, for the most part, neither side really wanted to be there. The French showed up in the first half and they were just walking around just doing next to nothing, and England just ran right over the top of them. And then in the second half, the French brought back at half time, they brought the four guys in who they took out, who they gave rotation in this game, and all of a sudden, the intensity of the French side we've seen throughout the tournament was back. And if we'd had that in the first half, it would have been an unbelievable game. But unfortunately, it was a high scoring game. But look, it's a nice showcase and all the rest. It's some nice goals, but the intensity just wasn't there. And I get it because the fact it's the end of a incredibly long season for these guys. It's been over 12 months since they last had a break if you count preseason. I understand it, but there was just no intensity in this game. It's hard to analyze it because there were times where it looked like in the first half, France looked like they weren't really into it. Second half, England looked like they weren't really into it. I think England deserved to win the game. They were the more consistent side over the 90 minutes. So their best result since 1966. Saka was very good in the game. There's no question about that. And I think it would have been nice to see Kane or Bellingham involved more than what they were, because it could have been interesting to see if the way that England were playing and the way France were playing, Kane could have had 4 goals on his own and got the golden boot. So for that case, it was a bit of a missed opportunity, but it was a game where, look, it happened. I'm not a big fan. It's the first time I actually sat down and watched the place game, and I only did it because I woke up early enough to do so on the Sunday. I normally give this game a miss, and it was entertaining. I'll give it that. It wasn't my cup of tea, but it was entertaining.
Yeah, look, it's probably not one for the purists, but it was a game nonetheless that showed maybe what can be done when, you're not so hell-bent on parking the bus and, so nervy and trying not to bottle it and end up
It
bottling it.
was telling that they came out on the front foot in the first 5 minutes, wasn't it? Like they had a point to prove.
I think England did, sort of wanna stick it up a few people, and, it certainly showed in their performance, particularly in that first half, and, Adam, what did you think? Was anything in particular that stood out for you in this game?
Look, this game was like, I know for football purists like us, we hated it. It was garbage, really, if it come down to it. But I tell you what, for the casuals, for the American audience, especially those that crap on about, oh, 0-all ties and all that. Well, didn't these two teams show them? And this was like it turned about to what, like a 49-42 scoreline in an NFL game. It was just defense was optional almost, but it was a lot of fun to watch. And my personal story is that I was very upset when Jude Bellingham was going to step up and take the penalty. Yeah, and then Bukayo Saka got ended up scoring to the hat trick. That would have cost me $200. Gamble responsibly. And but then Jude Bellingham scores that breakaway goal for the sixth goal, and boy did I celebrate that. So look, look at the end. It was a bit of fun. Again, I think the crowd were entertained, but look, it's one that we'll remember for more so as sort of a nostalgia act and sort of one for future rather than sort of a great game of football, because look, it wasn't that great, and it was two sides that clearly were playing in exhibition mode.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say, to be honest, and,
I'm sure we're going to
we'll
remember it. We've already forgotten most of it, to be honest with you.
Yes, yeah, we shall see. I'm sure England will remind us that they came 3rd at this World Cup in the
Yeah.
future when they don't make it this far ever again. Anywho, now to the final, and well, Spain are our world champions in the men's and the women's game. So, the first time that that's happened in football history, which is kind of cool. But yes, Spain 1-0 over Argentina in extra time. Ferran Torres, almost called him Fernando Torres. Gee, gee,
The
what's
Liverpool
going on
heart
there?
in you is strong, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, even though he's a complete Judas. But anyway, yes, Ferran Torres with the goal in extra time there. Fantastic result. Football won. But Adam, shall I start with you and your thoughts on this one? Because, gee whiz, this was a very interesting game.
I got a question. Did Argentina show up to play football, or did they show up to try and get the penalties? Or like I said, it just is for a team with probably one of the greatest, will go down as one of the greatest players in football history to this point, and a couple of very handy players as well. To be held to no shots on goal for 107 minutes, it is incredible to me. I just do not know tactically what was going through their heads. Look, Spain were good. Don't get me wrong about that. Look, defensively, and another player that we sort of don't seem to give players, and we don't seem to give enough credit to this in this World Cup, was the centre half pairing of Laporte and Kubasi as well for Spain. They've been lights out as much as Rodri in front of them, who is probably a very deserving Golden Ball winner. But again, that doesn't sort the amount of creativity that it should be in that team. The fact that they only 2 shots on goal, and then on the other hand, Spain 20 shots on goal, 12 on target. Look, I really it really begged the difference. Did only one team turn up to actually play football and win this game? Because I just do not know for the life of me what were Argentina thinking going into this final, how they prepared. And as I said, Spain were good, but they weren't that good.
Yeah, well, I mean, Argentina looked at they didn't. I mean, we got a preview in the semi-final. You know, they were more interested in brawling with people, weren't they? As they did after the whistle as well. But we'll get to that later on. So I don't know. I think it's probably a sign of this Argentinian side. I think they realise that they don't have the legs anymore. It's an older generation of players. Let's be honest here, gentlemen. I mean, you know, Lissandro Martinez goes off with an injury and you bring on Nico Otamendi and he's mid-30s. That they knew they were in trouble and they knew that they had to unsettle Spain from my point of view. Now that I've had what sort of over 12 hours to think about this now. And I think that's really what it was. And I think, Scott, you probably have some similar thoughts around that.
Yeah, they're an aging side, Argentina, at the end of what's been a historic run, and we should give them credit for what they have been over
Yeah.
the last 8 years. As a international side, they have been one of the best sides. They won a World Cup, but the majority of these players are now very much at the end. And I said this to Adam actually over the weekend, that Argentina had a problem in this game before kickoff, and that was the fact that defensively, they defend with nine outfield players, because as great as Lionel Messi is, and you have to have him in the lineup, he just does not do the defensive work. And in addition to that, fact that he doesn't do the defensive work. You had the same problem that France had. You were overmatched numbers wise in midfield, and Spain just played through them for fun for the entirety of this game. This was as one sided of a final as I can actually remember. Normally,
Mhm.
both sides in a final will have moments. Think back to 4 years ago. That was an unbelievable game.
Yeah.
France going one way, Argentina the other. It was brilliant. This was just a one sided game. There was very few times Argentina got the ball in the front third and you thought they were going to do anything until the last 10 minutes where they just threw everything at it. It was so one-sided that Spain just had so much of the ball. They were really wasteful as well, Spain. They should have put this game away inside 90
Mm.
minutes, and it was only the the heroic defending of Argentina and the say some Emmy Martinez that kept them alive. They were defending bravely, but at some point that was always going to run out. And Argentina, they ran out of legs. They ran out of ideas as well. They weren't set up to compete with Spain. That lineup they put out there, the way in that 4-4-2 with the two wide midfielders, they just didn't have enough in midfield to be able to compete with that Spain side, to get on the ball, to get Lionel Messi to do anything. That's the quietest game I've ever seen him have. He didn't have
Yeah.
much of an involvement. You had to play him because it's his last game and he was the real ticket to get you a second World Cup. But it was just that the setup was never going to work the way that Spain play. Once they got hold of the game, there was only going to be one winner. And the way they play, I enjoy watching. So I'm very glad
Yeah.
they were able to do that. But that's as one-sided as I've ever seen a final in a very long time, Alex.
Yeah, I think Peter Drury summed it up pretty well in that call. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it's something along the lines of this is the most dominant performance, and yet the margins are still so small.
Yep.
And, Peter Drury, I think my personal favorite commentator, he just nails it with things like that. And, that comes from many a year of watching football as Peter
Mm.
has. And he sums up the situations in games so eloquently. I just wanted to continue on your point, Scott, too, around the Argentine midfield. If you look at it, really, Enzo Fernandez is the only one with a bit of legs there. The rest, Leandro Paredes and Rodrigo de Paul, both the wrong side of 30, and
Yeah. They're both
playing.
32. McAllister's 27, but he doesn't have the legs, as you know, as a Liverpool fan.
Yes, yeah, he has no pace whatsoever. I can rest assure you, and I mean he's only really turned up for 8 games so far this season. So let's make that clear, and arguably only 7 because I mean this game, did he really show up? I don't think so. It's more of a hark back to his Liverpool form. But I guess for you, Adam. This is, I think there was another stat I saw floating around that, Argentina, no shots on target, and it's the third time that the team has done this in a final. All 3 times have been Argentina. So where to from here for Argentina?
Look, I actually fear for Argentine football as far as being sort of, they look. I agree. Scott made a very, very good point before about, look, you can't, no matter our feelings about Argentina, the way they play the football, everything that surrounds that, they have been they have been very, very good for probably for 2 cycles now, building up, especially through the World Cup in Qatar as well. I know we got a very, very good look at them as Australians as well, twice actually. And but again, this is a team that I think is at the end of their window. I look at this team at the moment, and the big problem was that it's almost, yes, having probably the best player in the world in Lionel Messi in that side is a blessing and a curse, because it's history repeating itself as well. Yeah, I'm not sure if you boys, old enough to remember. Even I can barely remember as well. Argentina after Diego Maradona was the same, where because there was no wide character, because Maradona was such a cultic personality that there was not really the next one coming through. And they've allowed it to happen again with Lionel Messi, where you really cannot see who the heir apparent in that team is. Look, maybe it's Julian Alvarez. I don't know. It doesn't seem to me. You look at young players as well, and this sort of little this factoid that I sort of picked up, that the next two highest rated young players in the world under 24 years old are Thiago Almada and Alejandro Gamacho. And I know Scott is about to absolutely crack, because but then you
One
look
of
at the
those
other.
can play football, the other's a bit of a space waster.
Yeah, but then you look at the other. You look at the other three teams in the semi-finals as well. Spain, Lamine Yamal, Paul Kubasi, Pedri. They're both all under 24. You know that they're going to be a big factor in 2030. You even look at France, a Warren Emery. That's not to mention you've also got Desire Doué and a number of other players. Jude Bellingham for England, and you could probably throw in a number of other players as well. They're going to be the linchpins of that side. I don't see that with Argentina, so I think they need to enjoy it while it lasts. And even Brazil have got an Endrick and a Rayan coming through as well. And I don't know if Brazil are even that confident that those two can really sort of pull it up. So it could be a very interesting time where the dynasty of this Argentinian sort of football team, I think it's come to a close unless something really major changes with them. And look, I think it's the immediate ushering at the door of Lionel Messi. He's been the greatest since Maradona, but it's time for him to move on for the sake of Argentinian footballers. And I know there's probably a lot of Argentinians that probably now, probably hate me for saying that. But look, if you care about your team, that's probably what needs to happen. So I think he's probably outstayed his welcome probably 2 years too long, and I think that the national team is going to suffer for it because of it.
I don't think it's suffered to this point. I think it will suffer if he continues on, because we saw today, Alex, what happens when you're trying to carry a player defensively in the biggest of moments. Like, he could get Argentina to the next World Cup. He could get them through the group stage in the early knockout rounds. But we saw this tournament, he didn't have the ability to defend at the front, and that was lacking for them in this game here today. And again, I don't think they get any better in 4 years. So he's been unbelievable, to Adam's point, but this is the right time for him to step aside. And a number of his teammates as well, guys like DePaul and Paredes, who we'll get to in a minute, and guys like Otamendi and many of the other players who've led this team in the last 8 years. And even Scaloni, probably time for him to go and test himself in club football in Europe somewhere, because he's got a great resume behind him. So I feel like this is the end of this Argentina side. Whereas to Adam's point, Spain, England, France, etc., look like they've got more to give in terms of what they have. So this is the beginning of the end for this Argentinian group. It's been amazing, but
Yep.
unfortunately, all things come to an end. And for the great Messi, it's a situation you got to three finals. So you could unfortunately only win one, but that's the one that he'll always be remembered for.
Exactly, and it puts him in the conversation, of course, as one of the best of all time, and it's hard to dispute that because he did win a World Cup, whereas certain someone else didn't. So, yes, I mean that. Anyway, that's a whole other story. There is one Argentinian player that I do want to talk about that is highly rated, Nico Paz. Now, this young man is playing at Como, so he has Fabregas as a coach. A lot of big raps on him. I think he only got very few minutes in this game, in this World Cup. I think he's 20, 21. A lot of big
Yeah.
raps on him. So again, it's always difficult, but the main issue I think Argentina have is because they built completely around Messi,
Yeah.
and now Messi is, well, let's be honest, he's over the
Yeah.
hill and he's done. how do you put a football team together that
Is
doesn't
there a
have
young
Messi?
striker at Madrid as well? Like is it Master or something?
Mastuono, yeah, I think
Yeah.
he's
I
another
feel like he
young
could be a
young
part of
lad
the
as
future for them
well.
as well.
Yeah, so there are players there, but again, you can't. I don't. It's always dangerous that you build around one player. I know
Yeah.
that Messi is a once in a generation talent, once in a even more sort of talent, but that's the danger. So,
Mm.
hopefully with a couple of these young lads, they can come through and divvy up the workload, so to speak, and make it more of a team performance. Because that's ultimately what Spain did. They showed the way that
Yep.
modern football and football should be played. It's a team sport at the end of the day, and it should be a collective, and you should all be buying into the coach's ideas, and that's what Spain did. But let's go on to the dark arts of Argentina, and I mean, look, it was pretty disgraceful. Let's be honest, wasn't it, Scott? I mean, I just it was. I'm really disappointed. I thought Argentina. Maybe I was a bit naive. I thought they were better than that, but they were horrendous.
We've given Argentina credit for what they've been over the last 8 years. Now let's assess what they did today because they didn't play much football at all. They were very much there to try and get under the skin of the Spanish side. And before we tear into Argentina, credit to Spain because they never bought into any of it for
Yeah.
the entirety of the game. They were just going about their business, ignoring the Argentinian tactics, which were to try and get under the skin. A lot of physicality from them, a lot of leaving a foot in or a shoulder or whatever it might be. It was very much a physical situation. Enzo thoroughly deserved his red card for that challenge. He sent the guy into a somersault. That's a pretty clear yellow
Mhm.
card. So it's hard to argue that one. I know he tried to argue it, but really that was clear as day. And some of the other guys could have been sent off as well, including Paredes when he came on at halftime. He was more interested in kicking people on the ball. So that was clearly the focus for Argentina. They were using all the tricks of the trade that they've got. We know they are the masters of the dark arts, not just in this tournament, but in tournaments prior as well. And all that stuff caught up with them today. Because once you strip away all of that, what have you got? And they didn't have enough out there. And there was too much of that today from them. And it was very disappointing to see a great nation like Argentina resort to that as their almost sole weapon in this game because they didn't have much else. It was very disappointing to see the game descending into that from their perspective. And I was glad Spain didn't lower themselves to engage it and they just played their football. So at least one side out there was trying to play football because I don't think Argentina tried to play too much of it.
No, they were trying to play a bit like Las Pumas, I think, a bit of rugby union out there from what I could see. So, and then yeah, I mean, even the off field stuff after the game, Adam, I think it was disgraceful. I saw Molina sort of doing a half coat hanger to one of the Spanish players. We saw,
Yeah.
um, it was our friend Paredes taking on Gavi as well. Was
Yeah.
that was the one you wanted to talk about, Adam? I believe.
Yeah, I think yeah, after full time as well. Look, I don't know if Gavi gave him a gob gave Paredes gob ball. That's how he's reacted, but still, to try and sort of punch him and choke him, that's just unbecoming of a footballer. That and look, he did get shown a red card after the whistle. So we'll see. It should be a long ban, but look, to be honest, I don't think at this point it's even a factor. I probably think he's done as a international footballer anyway. He can go around, be a thug at Boca Juniors for the rest of his time. That's our sight out of mind almost. But look, yeah, I agree that it's just it's disappointing, but also in a way, yeah, Argentina it just devolved for them, and it's just sort of show even the sort of the class of stuff like turning their back on the presentation. I think what I said to you boys before we started recording as well. Look, how would they feel that France did that to them 4 years ago in Qatar and or 3.5 years ago? And again, I know they're disappointed. I get that, but that is the ultimate side of disrespect when you just turn your back on them. I'm sure there'll be some spin saying that they'll celebrate with the fans, blah 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 blah. But come on, don't try to sugarcoat it any worse that. And the funniest thing is that maybe we talk in generalized terms. This is probably not the most egregious thing that actually happened on this day during the final. I think that I think there's a lot to unpack to this whole final, but the bright spark was Spain playing football, which I don't know what it is about Spain. This second World Cup final, and they seem to attract teams that all they want to do is kick and not play. Because, but I think that we saw similar. This is deja vu to Johannesburg in 2010.
Oh my lord, Adam, you're so true. But Scott, I'll throw it to you because you were red hot on wanting to join the conversation here.
I was just going to add the parallels between Spain's two World Cups are uncanny, aren't they? They drop
Yeah,
points in the first game of the group, and
yeah.
then they cruise through from that point on with their football doing the talking. And Adam's point, yeah, Johnny Heitinga kicking everything in sight in Johannesburg, and now we've got Enzo Hernandez sending players doing somersaults. So they are very similar to the way the two games were played. And I agree, by the way, the stuff after the game was absolutely disgraceful. There's a way to lose. I understand it's a World Cup final, and it must hurt to lose a game of that magnitude. But there's a way to lose. You have to show a bit of humility, and at least even if you were just shaking their hand and moving on, just there's a way to lose. And Argentina, unfortunately, they didn't play very well in the game, and they weren't much better after the game, were they?
No, they weren't. And I just want to also draw people's attention to that wonderful bit of karate that Nigel de Jong executed on Xabi Alonso in
I was the young. My
2010.
bad. Apologies.
No, you're right.
No, I think
That
I
was
did get
but
shown a
it
red. So.
Heitinger was kicking everything, you're right, but it
Yeah.
just wasn't the most famous kick from that game. That's all. I
No.
just want to put that image in people's minds out there because it's absolutely fantastic. And if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and get on Google and check that out. But I think that might be a good spot to leave it with the Nigel de Jong fly kick to Xabi Alonso. What do you reckon, gents? I mean, it's been a pleasure doing this with you
Yeah.
over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and I am going to miss it. I am going to miss the World Cup. I'm going to have to get a hobby or something, and I don't know. It's going to be weird, but okay, we'll have to do it. So all the best, Scott. I mean, you've got plenty to do with MPL coverage, so I'm sure that'll keep you
Thanks for
busy.
the reminder on that front. Yeah, got plenty to do
Yeah.
in that case.
Yeah.
Also, with the national teams, we have the Socceroos coming up in September, but also the Asia Cup coming up in 6 months as well. And the road to 2030 begins today. It feels like the World Cup final just ended, 12 hours ago, give or take. And now the long road to 2030 and the centenary edition of the World Cup, it begins now. And there's a lot of things happen between now and then. And bring it on. I'm looking forward to that World Cup. And I would like it to be a bit sooner because it's you always miss it when it's gone, don't you? You get yourself into that rhythm of watching all the games, and once it's gone, you got to figure out what you were doing 6 weeks ago to try and fill that time again. But it has been a lot of fun doing these World Cup shows. It would be nice for Australia to go a little bit further, but it's been fun nevertheless, Alex.
Yeah, that's right. We made the knockout stages, which was the main thing. I think it's a pass mark, but yeah, it feels like we could have done better. You're 100% right, and I'm sure you agree, Adam.
Yeah, look, I do. Yeah, and again, it's been a lot of fun that if I know, especially Scott and I, actually jumping on, actually talking about stuff that we don't normally talk about. We don't normally get to have free shots at every country in the world. We obviously we're very Queensland focused or Socceroos focused or such. So yeah, look, there's actually been a lot of fun to talk about the world game and talk about sort of the brighter stars in the world of football. But look, also let's not forget as well that we are only just under a year away from the Women's World Cup as well. So the Matildas, that could be a very, very interesting road as well. So but look, at least in the meantime, Socceroos against Brazil in September. That should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it should indeed. Two very interesting trajectories both countries are on. Brazil on the slide, Australia hopefully on the up. Also, just want to make mention that we do have under 17 women's and under 17 men's
Mm,
World Cup coming up later in the year, which I'll
yep.
look to cover as well. So I might need to enlist you gentlemen to help me out with that
Yeah.
in the future, but we can discuss that off air and we will let the good people go. Thank you very much for listening. Really appreciate you. I hope you've enjoyed listening to these rambles on world football, the Socceroos, and the World Cup. I can't wait. We'll pencil it in for 4 years' time. Hey, gentlemen.
Sounds like a
We
plan.
shall.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Scott and Adam. Really appreciate it. All right, that's it for the last of the World Cup 2026 review shows with the Aussie Football Passport and Brisbane Football Review. Thank you once again for listening, and goodbye for now.